Hello everyone, welcome to our video where we're doing calculating interest. This is an extension of 7th grade, so we are going to go straight into the notes. Anything that I skip, you can skip on your notes. So the first thing we're going to start with is simple interest. With simple interest, I'm going to put a little asterisk right here, solving for interest. Now, how you know this is that it starts with I equals. That I has a meaning. I stands for interest. And then it has variables that go after that each have their own meaning. So if it wants you to solve for simple interest, your question will always say something about simple interest or just simple, but that's how you would associate it with this type of a problem. I'm going to move this calculator out of the way. There we go. So P, this is your principal amount. So what that means is like the amount of money that you either started with or the amount of money that you maybe have deposited in the very beginning. So those are some keywords that you're looking for is this person started with this much money or this person deposited this much money. The next thing is the rate. And the rate is, I'm going to change colors here. The rate is always expressed as a percentage, and you have to convert to either a decimal or what I noticed in class is that y'all really prefer the number over 100. I know fractions used to scare us, but our calculators actually can make those happen a lot easier for us. So rates are always percentages that you must convert to either a decimal or a fraction because your calculator cannot do the percent sign, or if it can, I don't know how to make it happen. The last thing is the time, which is in years. That is probably the most important part is understanding that your time must be in years when dealing with either simple or compound interest. So then just a little definition here. Simple interest is the interest earned only on the principal or the original amount deposited into the account. So with that being said, simple interest is something that just gives you the interest that you earned on your principal amount. Now you can obviously convert that to a total, but that would take an additional step. Whereas if they just say solve using simple interest, they're asking for just the interest amount on the money that was either borrowed or deposited. The next thing is compound interest. Now if you'll notice that this formula looks a little bit different. It starts with that A equals, and what this solves for, so solves for a total. So this actually solves for everything. It solves for how much you originally deposited and how much interest did you earn on what you deposited. Okay, so A stands for account balance. And again, as we talked about a while ago, this simply means total. Perfect. And I want you to notice you have PRT, PRT. All of these things are the exact same. So I'm going to take a second and write these out. Perfect. Now, with this being said, you have your principal amount, you have your rate that is written as a percentage that you must convert to either a decimal or the number over 100, which seems to be my class's favorite way to do it, is just the number over 100. And then of course the time in years, and I'll put time next to that so y'all have that word for T. But please always make sure your time is in years. And then compound interest is earned both on the principal plus any previously earned interest. So Compound interest is used whenever you are getting a total. And what it does is it takes that principal amount again and it adds that interest to it, kind of taking out that extra step for you. Okay, now both of these formulas are found at the bottom of your reference chart that you are given on start day. Simple compound interest, there they are. There is no need to memorize the formulas, but what I recommend is when you're studying at home is understanding what each of these individual variables mean. Okay, so at the bottom we're going to do a few different things. It says that these are the questions to kind of think about as you're moving through the questions. What formula do I need? What formula will give me interest versus the account balance? And most importantly, I'm going to put like a little star next to this one. What is the question asking me for? Y'all are going to be reading these, so it's going to take some time to understand what is happening. So it says use and apply the formulas above to calculate the interest earnings below as well as the total balance of the account. Assume that no other deposits or withdrawals were made. So number one, Ahmed deposits $600 into an account that earns 2% simple interest for 30 years. This right here is your dead giveaway on what you're doing. Simple interest. On your reference chart, here's what my expectation would be. You see simple interest. You think, oh, I have a formula for that. Simple interest, I equals PRT. We're going to write that out. I equals PRT. Now, with that, we do need to identify everything that this question gave us. It says that Ahmed deposited $600 into an account that earns 2% simple interest for 30 years. So this question was nice and pretty much broke it all out for us. We're going to take it a step further and organize our information. We're going to write a P, an R, and a T. Perfect. P. P stands for principal amount. How much money did we start with? We started with $600. Perfect. The rate. Rate is expressed as a percentage. The percentage given was 2%. However, I have to convert that to either a decimal or a fraction. Now, my students personally, what I've noticed, like the fraction, because your calculator can do that for you. So you take the percent and put it over 100. There we go. And then of course the time has to be in years, and this says 30 years. Perfect. I can put the number 30. Once you have all of your pieces, it makes it easier for you to plug those pieces in. So that's what we're going to do right now, is we're going to replace all of the variables that we need with the information that we have. Our principal was 600 times the rate, which is 2%, but remember, we have to write it as a fraction or a decimal. So I'm going to do 2 over 100, and then the time, which is 30. Notice all three things are being multiplied. All three things are being multiplied. And then this is where your handy dandy calculator comes in. Always give yourself a fresh start on your screen. We're going to type this in. 600 times alpha y equals 1, 2 over 100 times 30. Notice they match on my screen, they match on my paper. Press enter, and here is what I mean by what is the question asking you for. You were asked for the interest earned and the account balance. What does the simple interest solve for? Simple interest solves for interest. So right now, this $360 is just the interest that this account earned. What that means is this is not all the money you have. This is the extra money that you received based on the stipulations of this question. If you want everything put together that you have, that would mean that you wanted a total, which is what this question down here says, account balance. You can create a balance based on knowing your interest and the amount that you started with. Because I don't know about you, but I like knowing how much money I have. So with that being said, Ahmed started with $600, but then accrued $360 in interest. So to find my total, I take 600, I add 360, and I see that he earned $960 total. So that is what the difference is with interest versus account balance. Interest is just the extra money that you receive, whereas account balance is everything, how much you started with and the interest. Going on to number 2, I'm going to clear my calculator real quick, sorry. Sasha makes a $2,400 deposit into an account that earns 4.5% interest compounded annually for 8 years. So let's go highlight our info. A $2,400 deposit. Notice how our principal amounts always usually have the word deposit next to them. That's super important. Into an account that earns 4.5% interest compounded annually for 8 years. Perfect. Now, compounded annually. My goal is for you to see these words and know, oh, that's what it wants me to do. So compound, here's your formula. Let's go write that down. A equals P times 1 plus R to the power of T. Now what I notice is that whenever y'all go through these, y'all forget that this T is an exponent. It's up at the top of your formula. So you have to remember to turn it into an exponent. Okay? So how you do that? Got to get your values first. Don't be lazy on me. Go write down your values. You need a P, you need a R, and you need a T. Hopefully by now you're like, oh, Miss B, 2,400 is my principal. You're correct. That is how much she deposited. Then it says R. Well, we know that the R is represented as a percentage, so it is that 4.5. But we know our calculators cannot compute percentages. We have to type them in a certain way. So we're going to do that 4.5 over 100. And then the time is 8 years. Perfect. Not crazy difficult. Once you have your pieces, it's actually not as crazy as it seems. You rewrite based on how the formula is written. We're solving for A, so I need my principal first. 2,400 times 1 plus the rate. Now the rate is the percentage, but I have to write it in its new form. 4.5 over 100, close parentheses. You're just following the formula. You're plugging in the pieces so they match. The T is an exponent. T is 8. I have an exponent of 8. Okay, perfect. Now, remind yourself what compound interest solves for. Compound interest solves for a total. So I am going to put something in the total box, but let's see if we can figure out what that number is. Let's tap it in. 2,400 times 1 plus, make your fraction, 4.5 over 100, close parentheses. For those of you that may have forgotten, your exponent button is right under the clear button to the power of 8. Make sure the one on your calculator matches the one on your paper, and in this case it does. I'm going to press enter. I get this $3,413.04. Now, Another way to help you understand compound interest is compound. Your answer will always be larger than the number you started with. That is how you can tell, oh, I put the interest in with my principal amount. And that is why the number appears to be larger. Okay? So now I have interest earned, which I know that's not true because interest earned is usually less than this amount. But account balance, oh, that's everything. That's why that amount is bigger. So we're going to put our account balance here. $3,413.04. Now, I like to challenge y'all and take you to the next step. So that's why interest earned is on here. I do want us to identify the interest earned, because what if I just wanted to know what was the extra money that the account received? How you would do that is you take this $3,413.04, and instead of adding, because it already did all the addition for you, you would actually do the inverse, which is subtracting how much money you started with, which is $2,400. And that would be how you got your interest only. So that interest only is $1,013.04. So that is the true difference between simple and compound. It is the formulas and understanding which formula solves for what. So on your next page, we're going to do the same thing. Just notice that the steps are all cut out. But I challenge you to still keep yourself organized. It says use the interest formulas to calculate the interest earnings below, as well as the total balances. Assume that no other deposits or withdrawals were made. So this statement right here is super important, especially when y'all get to higher level maths, when they do start making different additions to accounts. But it's not important right now. So number 3 says that a $5,400 deposit for 11 years earning 4.25% simple interest. So see, they kind of cut the word super short, but what should stick out to you is this part right here. So I challenge you to pause the video, attempt this one on your own, and come back when you're ready. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you saw simple interest and you thought, oh, we know what that is. That is our I equals PRT. Didn't have to memorize it. That is in the reference materials for us. What I do need to know is that P stands for principal, R stands for rate, and T stands for time. Now we can go fill all that information in. Our principal amount was $5,400. And then our time is 11 years. And our rate written as a fraction or a decimal. Now, I understand that this is already written as a decimal. However, that is a percentage right here. So, if you are going to move the decimal, you have to move it 2 times to the left, or as my students prefer, 4.25 over 100. We have to turn it into a number that we understand, and that is how that happens. Then the steps are actually pretty simple. You're just going to plug in I equals, instead of P, you put your $5,400 times your rate, which was 4.25 over 100, and then of course your time, which was 11. Okay, I'm just following the formula. Everything else is done in the calculator. Gonna reset that. Perfect. 5,400 times 4.25 over 100 times 11. Here we go. They match, so I know I did it right. And I get $2,524.50. So notice this amount is smaller than this amount. Therefore, I know that that is just the interest. I'm going to put that right here. $2,524.50. and 50 cents. Don't get lazy on me. You bring in that invisible zero. Now, it does say account balance. So remind yourself what that is. I'm going to put a T so that way I know that that means total. To get my total, I have to take my principal, which was $5,400, and I have to add what I got as my interest only, which is $2,524.50. And that will get me what answer I need for right there. So let's do that. $5,400 plus $2,524.50. And we get $7,924.50. Writing that down. Perfect. And that is how you would turn a simple interest formula into a total by adding. Now I'm going to challenge you to do the same thing on number 4. Pause the video and attempt it on your own. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you read that it does in fact say compounded annually. So we know we're using that compound formula. A equals P times 1 plus R to the power of T. We're going to not be lazy. Let's write down our information. Just like that. There we go. Then I know my principal is 15,000. My rate is 7/100. And my time is 6. Perfect. Gonna plug that into my formula here. Let's do A equals 15,000 times 1 plus 7/100 to the power of 6. Notice to the power of 6. So then I'm typing that in my handy dandy calculator here. 7/100 to the power of 6. Hit enter. I got an answer larger than what I started with, meaning that I got a account balance. So make sure you put those dollar signs. $22,510.96. Now, of course, I'm taking you this step further, and I want you to also solve for the interest amount only. How much interest did this account earn on its own? This part's a little bit different. You take your account balance and you subtract the amount of money that you started the account with to receive your answer here. Because I'm essentially working backwards. I want to know just the little amount that caused what I started with to increase to now that 22,000. So there we go. And that interest earned was $7,510.96. Okay, so now number 7. Shelby deposits $3,000 each into the 2 savings accounts described below. If she doesn't make any other deposits or withdrawals, find the combined amount of the accounts after 7 years. So right now, I want you to pause the video, and I'm going to actually pause my video completely and work out just what these 2 things say. Then we'll come back together to answer the questions. Okay, as you can see, I worked out both accounts. I did account 1 over here and account 2 over there. Now, let me explain why I stopped in certain places. It says find the combined amount. Oh goodness, let me go turn my lights back on 1 second. Sorry about that. It says find the combined amount. That means the combined total. Amount means total. So account 1 had simple interest. Account 2 had compound interest. Compound interest solves for a total. That's what we wrote on our first page. So once I solved account 2, I stopped. However, account 1, I had to do that additional step because all account 1 gave me is the interest earned. To get a total, I had to add together my two amounts to see how much money was in that account total. So that's probably the trickiest part about this unit is understanding, oh, they want a total, or oh, they just want interest. So we really got to hone into those words to make sure that we understand, because now I'm ready for the final step, which is adding together $4,050 plus $4,221.30, which again, our handy dandy calculator here, 4,050 plus $4,221.30. Oh, sorry about the bell, y'all. Is 8,000. Oh, sorry. Let me get my color I want to use here. I'll just reuse this one. Put your dollar sign. $8,271.30. And that would be your grand answer on that. So we're going to do more examples that are combining the two things. But what I want y'all practicing and studying is the I, the P, the R, the T, and the A, when to use them and when not to use them. Alrighty, y'all have a great day. Bye.